welcome back to Tech Now. On this channel, what we do is normally record Flutter and that videos and also other programming tutorials, and we also look at tech tricks and also how to make money online. So if you like any of this, you can subscribe to our channel so that and also turn on the notification bell to get our videos anytime we upload. So here we'll be looking at starting with functions in our dat programming for Flutter and other dat word programming languages, functions and compatibility systems. So all you learn this, and then you can use this for a lot of programming a project. So let's begin. Our previous video was loops, okay? So you can check our first part of these videos to look at the other aspect of that. But in this video, we are looking at functions in that, okay? So functions in that, functions in that. Okay, good. So before that, let me clear everything here, and then let's look at the syntax of functions in that before we start with the example. So this is gonna be the syntax first. Okay, so let's watch the syntax first. Okay, so this is not code, it's just the structure of how functions actually work in that. So to declare a function, we normally have a return type, for example, int, and then we can have the function name. For example, we can say tech function, okay? So we can say probably tech now function, okay? So the function, I shorten it to func. Okay, then we will have what we call the parameters. Good. So these parameters can have the data type or the return type. For example, we will have int of what? Number. And then we will have another parameter where we can have several of these parameters, but let's only keep it to 2 for the syntax. Then we can have probably int long numbers. So this is basically the syntax, not a real code. Okay, so then we have the open and closing what braces, and here you can have your print out or code here. So you can have your print out or your code in here. Then what else can you have here? You can have your return type. For example, the return of what? Numbers, maybe numbers, or number. Here is number, so I use number times, maybe let's say long numbers. Yes, this particular one here. Good. That will be the return time. So this is actually example of syntax of a function. So we said we have this, that is the return type. We have the name of the function, that is technow func, and then we have the parameters. These parameters are required parameters, and then it is int number, that is the return type, and then int long numbers, and then we have probably the in the code you can write in a type of code here, and then we have the return of number times blah blah blah, but you need to make sure this is always terminated. It means to end the code. Good. And then we can also have same function with another return type of void like this, but here we don't have the return, we only have the print statement in here. So in here, since it's a void, we need to print this one. We need to print this one here with no return what keyword in here. So this is void, so it only print and then return it inside here. and then here it returns a value and passes it to the parameters and all that, and it can be handled by another variable. So do we actually need this? This can be off and it will work, but it's highly recommended you always use a return type for each function. Highly recommended. But if it is ignored, it will still work. It will still work. Nothing will happen to your code. It will still work. Good. But sometimes if you have a particular return type and you don't have it here, it might throw some kind of error exceptions. Okay. So this is the syntax for you. So let me clear that one off. Good. But we need to know that all functions are objects in that. They are objects in that, yes. And functions can even be, we say functions are what? Yeah, let me write that one out. We say functions are functions in that are what? Or objects. Objects. And then what we should also know is that we can assign functions in that to variable. Function to variable, yes, variable in that. Okay, so a whole function can be assigned to a variable. Okay, and also if we have no return in a function, if there is no return in a user defined function, it will always return a null. That will always return what? Return null, like this by default. Okay, so you should know this about functions in that. Okay, so let's begin with the real deal. What are we gonna look at in this tutorial? This tutorial, what we're gonna look at is, first we're gonna look at how to define a function using example. Okay, how to define a function. Example. Yeah, so let me say example. Okay, good. Example. Define a function. 2. What are we going to do next? How to pass parameters in function. Yeah, parameters in a function. Okay, parameters in that function. Good. And then next is we're also going to look at how to add a return value. How to add return value in that. Okay, value in a that function. Okay, what are we gonna do next? Next is we'll also look at how to test a function to see whether it actually returns null when there's no return statement, right? So we test the null aspect of the function. Okay, so what we have to know is the void main is always what? Always the entry of that programming. So this is that define entry into the program. So all other functions we'll be writing are what? User defined functions, which we define right beneath the main function. Okay, so let's begin with the example. Let's say we're gonna have a function with a void return type, and then we say function for parameter. Good. Function for checking for a parameter. Okay, so parameter, and then we're gonna have this where we can add the parentheses in there, and then we have this. So this is what the return type of the function and the function name, and here can have the parameters, and this is where we have the code for the function. So this is how we actually define a function. Okay, good. So let us write something in here. Till the function should perform something. So let's say we have int length, okay, th, and then if the length is assigned to a number, let's say 5, and then we have another variable with a return type of int, and that is the breadth. Okay, and that is assigned to what? Let's say 3. Okay, good. So we have two variables in the function with a return type of int. And then what are we going to do with this? Let's say we're going to find a parameter of a shape. So parameter, and then we say parameter is equal to what? 2 times what? The length and breadth of a shape. Okay, so times length plus what? The breadth of a shape. Okay, breadth of a shape, just like this. Okay, so we have this. Good. And then I end this statement. Then what should we do? Here we're gonna have a print statement, here. So print what? Print the parameter. Okay, so let's print the parameter. Parameter is. So we're gonna print this variable. Okay, this variable. So we need to start with the $, and then the name of the variable. Then we terminate this code. Perfect. Good. But let's run and see. We run, but nothing happened in the console. Why? Yes, because this cannot be executed without we calling the user-defined function inside the entry point of that function, like I said. So we need to actually define or call this function inside the entry point of the that. That is the void.main. So you always have to call your function in here. So we call the function name, and then we terminate that. Then we run again. We run, and then we see what happens on the screen. Okay, so on the console screen we have the parameter is what? 16. The parameter is actually 16, so it worked perfectly. Okay, so what else can we do? We can also pass what? Passing these variables inside this parameter space here, instead of calling it like a variable in here. So let's see how we can do that. So we can say this int length can be passed here instead of a variable here, and then the length, the breadth can also be passed here, just like this. Okay, then I clear this. But what we should know is the numbers have to be passed at this side of what? Of our code. So 5 and then 3. Here it should be inside the round bracket, and then you terminate like this. Good. So instead of using the variable right here, we can pass it through the what? The parameter section, and then we pass the numbers inside the function call. So I run again, and we should have exactly the same thing. Okay, so if here is 6, and here is 10. It should work perfectly. Okay, good. So now we have a 32. Parameter is 32. So this is parsing what? Parsing variables. The first one we look at defining function. The other one we look at passing parameters. So how to pass parameters. So this is the parameters. Now let's look at how to add return value in your what? In your function. So let me see. Return. Okay, so we're gonna define another user defined function beneath this. This is function 1, and we're gonna have another function here, and this function will be having a return type of int, and then we say the area. This function will check the area. Okay, and let's have the area, and the area is also having a similar what parameters in here, and then inside the area we're gonna have int area, and then we'll return the area. Okay, int area, and this int area will be equal to length times breadth here, as simple as this. Length times breadth, just like this. Okay, I clean the return type, then I terminate this. So just as simple as this. Area is simply what? Length and breadth. And then we need to return this. You get it? This is printing out the statement, and then we call the function here. But here we're using the return type here. So what are we going to return? We're going to return the variable area. Okay, here. So this is a function with a return. And what are we going to do? We're going to call this function here beneath the first one, and this will be the parameters for this function. So let's say 20 and then 31. Okay, here, then I terminate this. Okay, so we have our first function up there and our second function here. This is returning a variable in here. This is this two code. Anytime we execute this, it also runs. Okay, so it's the area length times breadth int area 32. Let me see. 32 get int length and then the area and we need to also have this int. Let me see. Main dot dat minute. Let me see this. Okay, return area length times breadth, and then we have the length and then the breadth. A minute, I just want to check this function, the area. Mm, okay, okay. The return area, we need to, well, let me see, get area, int length, length times breadth, return this. Okay, it seemed that it's not returning the value here, but it's supposed to return an this int length and int area breadth and okay, let me try this. By in here using the int. Let me use a variable. Okay, I got it. Let me use a variable in here, int. For example, we say a variable is let's say square the square area, and then this square area should be equal to this get area here. Okay, get area here, and then we print out this. Let's print this out like this. Okay, let me terminate this. Print out what? The area. So we'll say the area is this square. Oh, square area. The area is this. Okay, and let's see what happens. Okay, all right, good. So it worked now. All right, so what we were looking at is we were returning the area only, but it actually was not printing anything. It is only showing the first one. You see, let me copy this and then we move back so that you see what I just did. Okay, so I was a bit skeptical, but let's look here. First, I only called the function and I passed in the parameters. Good. Even though it will run perfectly, you are still not printing anything to the screen for the user to see, right? So it's returning the area, all right. It's taking the parameters and all that, but it is not displaying on the on the console area. So had I just had a variable attached to the function. So this is the variable int square area, and then I call the function and passing the parameters and passing these parameters, and then I now print out the variable that has been assigned to the function. So we said we can assign variables to functions. So this is a typical demonstration of assigning variables to a function. Okay, so this worked perfectly. So the first one is 32 and the area is 620. So what do we mean by returning now when a function has no return? So how to add a return value? Oh, no, how to test a function. That's return now. It's simple, just by commenting this one here, and it's gonna return a now, because this has what, this actually have what, have nothing to show, so it's gonna return that. So that is what we have for this tutorial. Okay, this is pretty much simple. Okay, if there's no return type here, this function cannot return any other stuff in here. So for example, I go this way, this way, this way, and then I return this error compilation. Yes. Oh no, let me clear this so that we'll be very clear with what we are doing here. Okay. Okay. There's no return type. Okay. So this is now. This is now. This is now. Good. So this is apparently not returning anything because the function is actually blank. Blank, just like that. Good. So this is the end of the function tutorial. We have looked at what? How to define what? Define functions in that, how to pass parameters, and how to what? How to add value in the that what function. So that is it for the basic of function. So we'll get to know more details about function in the next video. All right, see ya.